Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It looks like we won't be having an oathmark game today, Thursday, the way we normally do. This week's been a little strange and we've been behind on all of the videos. But Julie's not feeling her best today either, and both of us have health issues, and so we have to be very careful when we get sick, etc. So we'll either play tomorrow if she's feeling okay, tomorrow Friday, or Saturday, or even next week. I'm sure people won't see that as a problem. But that'll give me a chance to take my time a little bit on this game that we're going to be playing. And I wanted to talk a little bit about battlesworn, since we are going to be using the Riverboat Rules in battlesworn for this particular game. Now, two things are going to make this game very interesting. One is, actually three things. One is that it's going to be in 15 millimeters. I've been talking about using 15 millimeter figures for a long time. I've played a lot of different games in 15 millimeter, you know, Dragon Rampant, even Frostgrave I've played in 15 millimeter. And so I want to use my 15 millimeter collection, and we want to play Oathmark in 15 mil. The next is that it's going to be an amphibious landing of sorts. I've always wanted to play that in a game, and I think Oathmark's going to lend itself fine to that. There might be one or two house rules that we use to kind of accommodate the narrative, basically. I do have a couple of narrative videos in one of the playlists. You guys can check them out. I can have a link in the description to the last narrative that I made. So, so those are the sort of three. It's going to be an amphibious landing. It's going to have 15 millimeter scale. And then, you know, it's going to have boats that I made by hand to kind of accommodate the game and the figure. So we will be dividing our boats into those two classes. So there's large boats here and small. The other thing is I designed my boats for the Goblin Kingdom. They're designed as landing craft. I have these neat little boats with these cool little ramps here, and they have oars sticking out, and they're not very pretty, you know, they're just landing craft basically. So the little ramp will come down and then the troops get out. Now for disembarking, there are rules for disembarking. It's basically pretty much following the movement rules in Oathmark. The only thing, of course, with the little ramp, that's just going to be a free action, not going to count as a maneuver or whatever. Which brings me to the next point. When you're moving boats in the water section of the table, you're using basically the same movement conventions that you would when you're moving a unit tray. So to me, the way I look at it, to me the boats are just fancy movement trays, okay, with a couple of exceptions. But that's basically how I'm thinking about it. So I kind of, when we do the game, that's what's going to happen. So when a boat maneuvers, it's going to use an action, and when a boat, you know, if it moves forward, whatever, it's going to use an action. There is a very simple stat in battlesworn for boats, basically just the movement of the boat, which from what I see is like 6 inches. That brings us to another point. Because this is going to be 15 millimeters, I'm going to use centimeters instead of inches. Okay, we're going to see how that works with the boats. Boats are larger, so I don't know if I'm going to use inches when moving the boats because they're much larger. And then the ground forces are obviously going to go in centimeters because they're 15 millimeter scale. I don't know yet. I got to talk it over with Julie, and then maybe even do a little mock battle before the video to see where things could go wrong before we actually play the game. So I have the elves on that side have 2 boats. They're going to have like a little blockade. Julie does have a goblin city in her kingdom. So she is going to have like a goblin boat, and another boat, they're going to serve as sort of the blockade, and all I have are landing craft. Now, one important rule is that boats don't carry cavalry. Okay, that's a rule in battlesworn. We're going to change that for the narrative, and because I designed these landing barges, I'm saying that these landing craft, the large landing craft is designed to carry cavalry. So we are going to carry cavalry in this game. But in the rules, they normally don't let you carry cavalry, which makes sense. But for us, we're going to do it because of the boat design, because of the story and everything else. I want my wolf cavalry, so it's going to be there. However, the one thing we are going to do to make up for the fact that we're kind of breaking that rule, cavalry is not going to be able to fight. If a boat comes in, locks in with that barge, they're not going to be able to fight because of the way, you know, they're mounted. It's just not, it's just for transport. So that's going to be a weakness on that unit, on that boat. So I have to try and protect that boat, get it to shore as soon as possible, and then unload my cavalry, and then they function as normal. We are keeping all the rules conventions for the core game, the rules of 5, you know, everything. We can't change any of that stuff. That stuff has to be, the rules for oathmark have to be in place, otherwise it's not oathmark. So those core rules, we have to obey the rules for that as much as possible. Okay, so we're basically just adding 1 or 2 house rules, but for the most part, we have to stick to the rules. So the rules of 5 are important even on the boats. So we're going to try as best as possible. I have lined up my little goblin soldiers, and she has lined up her little elves on the boats to kind of simulate how they would be aligned in a tray. Okay, and if we can't get 5 in a row, then we'll just do like 4 and then 1 in the rear. But we have to know, we have to make sure that we remember that it's 5 in a row and that's 1 rank. Okay, boats can fight, which is really cool, and why I think this is going to be such a cool game. When 2 boats lock with each other, they can fight. And that's true of my barges as well. So if I lock one of my barges that has goblin soldiers, I can actually fight with her boat. Now, 2 interesting things about the Riverboat Rules in oathmark. You have 2 different kinds of things that have to go on the boat. One is a crew. Every boat needs a crew. We are following that rule. Large boats get 5 crew. Small boats get 3 crew. We're following that rule, and I found these awesome little tokens that you're going to see in the game. These are from an old Pirates of the Spanish Main ship game that I used to have years ago. You put these little, it's made out of card, actually. It was by WizKids. It was an awesome little game. I still have it. But I have all these little crew markers, and we're going to use these to represent crews instead of figures. I need the figures for the units. And that brings me to the next point. You have crews, then you have units. Units, of course, are your fighting units. Those could be of any type except cavalry, right? But we're breaking that rule. But crews can only be of the militia, soldier, or pathfinder troop types. If you're an elf, you can use pathfinders as crew. Okay? We're sticking to that rule as well. So these crew will go by, we have to decide whether I'm just going to have soldiers as crew or militia, whatever, and then stick to that. I'll probably do 1 troop type for all the boats. This way it's easier. So if I choose to have militia as crew, they're all going to have militia. This way it's easier, and I don't have to remember, oh, these were soldiers and these were militia, and you know, whatever. That just brings more mistakes to the game. So we're going to decide that, and Julie the same. And she has some archers on her boat. So if a boat has archers, it is going to be able to fire into the enemy boat. Now, In oathmark, you do get a -1 if both boats lock together and they're fighting. You get a -1. Everybody does. You know, the fighting units get a -1 because of the boat, because it's rocking and all this other stuff. You don't use any special abilities. So that's going to make things a lot easier for us, because that's one of the things we always forget. You know, is, oh, these guys had charge ability and these guys had, brace ability and this ability and that. We don't have to worry about that for the boats. Now, once we get on land, yeah, all those abilities kick in. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 barges. One of them is large. The other 3 are small. They carry my soldiers. And Julie has 2 blockade ships. So chances are I'm going to be able to get something to shore, hopefully. And then I have to deal with her land troops, which she'll have a few land troops. Not very many. On land there, back there, you can see the land that I've set up. And then we're not sure what battle type, or we're thinking it's going to be a border strike battle type. We're using the core rules, not any of the scenarios in battlesworn. Okay, so we're using core rule scenarios mostly for now. Eventually, we do want to play battlesworn scenarios because they sound really interesting, and I can maybe set up a nice river table for some of those scenarios. So I don't know if it's going to be a pitch battle, defend the oathmark, one of those, and we may handpick our battle to fit the narrative, because you do roll randomly for the battle type, but that might not. I don't know. I'll have to see. Julie and I will have to decide. So I figured I'd make a little video since we're not playing today, and it's going to give me a chance to, well, maybe bring some paint to the boats that I haven't painted, and then kind of tweak things. And I got to make our little cheat sheets. We have little cheat paper slips that we cut, and we put all the major stats of the units. It just helps us remember. That's just us, right? But I am going to have a roster sheet separately, and we'll have these are tiny little unit trays that I made a long time ago. I used to play Dragon Rampant, and I even played Kings of War back when it was like 2nd edition, using 15mm, and so I made these little trays to accommodate my troops, and it so happens that these work excellent for oathmark as well. I can get 5 little guys in the front rank, and you know, we can kind of accommodate the oathmark rules. I only had to make 1 tray for one of the cavalry units that Julie has, so that I can fit all 5. Okay, so we're following all of those oathmark conventions. We can't change those things. Some interesting ways of determining river current, and that affects your boats. And despite the fact that we're saying these boats, they have their own power plant, you know, they have oars or they have sails, so they can kind of move however they please. However, even sailing vessels or barges with oars are going to be affected by the current. So we thought that would be very interesting, a very interesting rule. And basically all you do is you assign your river a direction of current, first of all, and we have a little piece here to determine, you know, to put on the table, just so that we remember what direction we decided. And then you give it a number from 0 to 5. And if it's 0, then there's no current. The boats can do what they want. But as you go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the number of inches that a boat is going to drift. And it has to drift. It has to do that every turn, you know, in the beginning of every turn, in the direction of the current. So that's going to make some interesting situations, I think, which is why I think we want to include that. And so if we make it a raging river, 5 inches, boats are going to have to drift 5 inches in the direction of the current. And if they hit a table edge, they just stop there, right? They never drift off the table. But it's interesting because that could drift you either into one of your friendly boats, and you kind of have to detach, wastes time on your end, or it could drift you right into an enemy boat, and then you have to decide if you're going to fight or not, you know. So it's going to be interesting. I think that whole current thing that battlesworn presents is going to be really cool to have. Boats themselves don't cost points. Boats are your crews, the crews that you choose for your boats are going to determine the points value of that boat. So we are following that convention, and one of the major conventions is that rules rather is that you do need a lumber yard in your kingdom. Okay, so we're gonna find ways of neither of us had lumber yards in our kingdom, and we're like, oh no, so we're gonna just do something in the narrative to kind of fit that lumber yard thing. I think I had a lumber yard in my kingdom, but she doesn't. But we wanted to make it fair, so we're gonna say something. She's gonna get the supplies to making the boats. You know, maybe she had an ally or something else that does have a lumber yard, whatever, supplied her with the boats, whatever. We're gonna change that because I need that in the narrative. So I'll have to check our kingdom sheets. But keep that in mind. In the rules, it does state that you need a lumber yard in your kingdom. And next time, when we design new kingdoms, we'll have to keep that in mind. Because lumber yards, one of the reasons why I haven't used catapults and our artillery is that, you know, neither of us had lumber yards. I think I do now. I'll have to check my kingdom sheet. But one of us do. So we're just going to kind of change that a little bit to fit the narrative and to fit the game. So that's it.